I always believed that fear was just part of the game. In my job as a YouTube streamer, creating adrenaline-filled content was my bread and butter. Playing horror games earned me praise, likes, and an ever-growing subscriber base. But back then, I didn't know that fear could be real, and that some games could ruin lives. It all started when I was checking my email. Amid the usual spam and promotional letters, one message stood out. It contained only a link and a note. For the bravest streamer. Try it if you dare. I was used to such trolling, but something about this email intrigued me. Maybe it was the anonymity. Maybe the promise of something truly unique. The link led to a game download. Something called Sad Satan. The name sounded bizarre, but I thought it was just an indie horror game created to scare people. I downloaded the game and launched it. The first thing that struck me was the darkness. A black screen with simple white text. Welcome. Leaving is impossible. I smirked. It seemed like yet another cheap attempt at a scare. The game loaded, and I found myself in a long, dark corridor. No instructions, no objectives. Just noise, something between a whisper and the crackle of an old radio. The walls of the corridor were covered in indistinct symbols that seemed both chaotic and deliberate. I started streaming. Comments began pouring in almost immediately. What is this game? Is it a meme or a real horror? You're not scared, are you? The game was weird but not frightening. I walked down the corridor, looking for something that could give a plot or purpose. But there was nothing. Just endless darkness. After 15 minutes of walking, I was about to quit the game when suddenly the first message appeared on the screen. Do you feel it yet? I froze. It felt strangely personal. Of course, I thought it was just a clever developer trick. But the viewers loved it. The chat exploded with comments. Wow, this is interactive. Maybe it's some kind of AI. Could it be malware? Be careful. I decided to continue. But now the game's atmosphere began to weigh on me. The corridors became darker. The sounds grew louder, like someone was quietly breathing into my ear. I turned on the light in my room, laughing at myself. That's when I noticed the first image. A blurry photograph of a man appeared on the wall. The face was familiar, but I couldn't place who it was. Then the screen flickered, as if the game froze, and the sound suddenly turned into a deafening scream. I quickly took off my headphones. My chat went silent and then flooded with comments. What was that? That guy looked familiar. Like some criminal. This is getting creepy. Holding my breath, I continued playing. The corridor widened, and now there were more images on the walls. All of them were black and white, but they seemed real. Not game characters, but people. Suddenly, the light in my room flickered. Coincidence, I thought. But then I heard it. A whisper. It wasn't in the game. It was behind me. I turned my head. No one. But from that moment I knew this wasn't just a game. I closed the game but couldn't fall asleep that night. In the darkness, I kept hearing whispers. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy head. Sleep had barely come, and I had spent most of the night staring into the darkness of my room, as if expecting something to emerge from the corner. My phone was flooded with hundreds of messages and notifications. The stream video had garnered thousands of views overnight, and the chat was overflowing with theories. The game has hidden meanings. This could be tied to real crimes. Don't play it again, it's dangerous. Curiosity was eating away at me. I had always felt a bit vulnerable in the face of the unknown, but that very vulnerability drove me to new challenges. Whenever something seemed forbidden or terrifying, I had to try it. So that day, I decided to launch the game again. This time, it started differently. The screen wasn't black. It immediately displayed a dimly lit corridor, and the whispering was clearer. Voices overlapped, but now I could distinguish the words. You are not alone. We see you. Do you feel it? The game was adapting to me. That much was clear. Between transitions in the corridors, images flickered on the screen, Faces of people I didn't know but who looked disturbingly familiar. My subscribers began writing. "That's Jimmy Seville. He was a serial pedophile. I just Googled. One of them is a killer who murdered children in the 80s. I paused the game and froze. What kind of game was this? I had never seen anything like it. It was too realistic, too personal, as if someone wanted me to see these faces. The chat was going wild. "Shut it down! Delete it! This is cursed!" But I couldn't. There was something more here than just a game. I pressed on. The corridor narrowed, the light was almost non-existent. I heard the sound of a child crying. It echoed from somewhere deep in the darkness. Another phrase tickled my ears, whispered from every corner. "They can't help you." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my chest. At the end of the corridor, I saw a door. It slowly opened, revealing an empty room. On the floor lay something that looked like a broken doll, but as I approached, the doll suddenly turned. It whispered something like, "We're here because of you." The screen filled with static noise, and then text appeared. "Turn it off before it's too late." My viewers in the chat were divided. Some demanded I continue, while others begged me to stop. But the worst happened when I pressed the exit button. The game wouldn't close. Instead, the text on the screen changed. "You thought it would be that easy?" I pulled the computer's power cord. The screen went black, and I exhaled in relief. But then it happened. My phone started vibrating. A message from an unknown number. "This is just the beginning. She sees you." I froze. My fingers, holding the phone, trembled slightly. I glanced around the room, searching for a hidden microphone or camera. This was too strange. Who was she? And how did they know I had just shut down the game? I tried to reassure myself. It was just a prank. Maybe one of my subscribers was trying to scare me. But then the lights in my room went out. My monitor, even without power, flickered once and lit up for a second, displaying the same doll I had seen in the game. That's when I realized I had gone too far. I sat in the darkness, staring at a monitor that shouldn't have been working. The doll from the game was still on the screen, its empty eyes staring straight at me. Forcing myself to take a deep breath, I pressed the power button, and this time the monitor actually turned off. The lights in the room came back on, but the feeling that someone, or something, was behind me didn't leave. I spent a few more minutes standing by the computer, trying to convince myself it was just a game. Just an extremely well-made game that toyed with my psyche. Nothing more. But then my phone vibrated again. This time, the message was longer. "You've opened the door. Now we are close." This couldn't be a coincidence. Someone was watching me, someone knew what I was doing and was using this game to scare me. I checked the windows. Outside, the street was dark and empty. My house stood on the outskirts of the city, with no close neighbors. Nothing suspicious, but that didn't bring any comfort. I decided to check the stream chat. Viewers were still actively discussing the game. "This isn't just a game. Those images of criminals. I looked them up. They're real serial killers. You need to stop. This is dangerous." One viewer shared a link to an article about Sad Satan. I clicked on it. It was an archived piece about a strange game allegedly found only on the dark web. It was said to contain encrypted videos of violent scenes, photographs of real victims, and mysterious messages. People who played it claimed the game made them feel the presence of something supernatural, and some even reported being stalked in real life. Amusingly, instead of fear, I felt excitement. This could be the content of the year. But at the same time, a nagging feeling told me I was playing with fire. That evening, I launched the game again, this time without streaming. I didn't want anyone watching in case something went wrong. The game started as usual, with a dark corridor. But now, the walls weren't just covered with symbols, they had clear words. "You know who you are. You cannot escape." After a few minutes of walking, I saw a door. It was open, and inside was a room that looked exactly like my own bedroom. Everything matched: even the smallest details. My favorite blanket lay on the bed, my mug sat on the desk. Panic washed over me. I stepped away from the computer, but the game kept running, even as I tried to press the exit button. A message appeared on the screen. "We are close." Suddenly, I heard a sound. A soft knock. It was coming from somewhere in the corridor. Grabbing my phone, I turned on the flashlight. The hallway was empty. But when I returned to the room, the monitor lit up again, displaying a photograph of a child. The same child I had seen in the game. I quickly turned off the computer and unplugged the power cord. A heavy weight settled over me, as if the air in the room had thickened. This no longer felt like a prank or just part of the game. This was real fear. My phone vibrated again. This time, the message was short. "Do you feel it now?" My hands trembled, but I decided to check if it was just my imagination. I walked through the entire apartment, searching for any signs of an intruder. Nothing. The windows were locked, the doors too. Yet the feeling that someone was watching me didn't go away. Returning to the computer, I decided to dig deeper into information about the game. On forums, people shared bizarre stories, cryptic messages, unsettling imagery, and even deaths of those who tried to delve too deeply. Some claimed the game was a portal to another realm, designed to summon something dark. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It was quiet, like a distant whisper, but absolutely real. "You think this is just a game?" I jumped, nearly knocking over my chair. The voice came from the speakers, but the computer was off. Panic overwhelmed me. I decided to leave the apartment for the night and go to a friend's place. But as soon as I grabbed my keys, I heard soft laughter coming from the darkness of the hallway. My hands shook, and the keys slipped from my grasp, clattering onto the floor. I turned around, but no one was there. Deep inside, I realized this wasn't just a game anymore. It had bled into reality, and now everything was intertwined. I stayed in the apartment, sitting on the floor by the door with a knife in my hand, until exhaustion finally overtook me. But even in sleep, I heard the whispers in my dreams. This is only the beginning. I woke up with the unsettling feeling that someone was standing over me. My eyes snapped open, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a shadow in the dark corner of the room. But as I focused, it was gone. Maybe it was just exhaustion and the lingering effects of the horrors of the past few days. I stood up, wincing as I stretched my stiff neck. The knife I had been holding slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor. The apartment was silent, too silent. The sense of safety had completely evaporated, leaving behind only a gnawing paranoia. I approached the computer. Even though I was certain I had unplugged it, the screen was glowing. On it, a single message was displayed. "You cannot escape. We are already here." The monitor flickered off again, and I felt my heartbeat quicken. In desperation, I grabbed my phone and called my friend Max. He was the only person who might understand what I was going through. He'd helped me countless times with technical issues and investigations for my channel. "Dude," I began, trying to mask the panic in my voice. "I stumbled across some game from the dark web. It somehow broke my computer. Can you come over and help?" "A game from the dark web? Are you out of your mind? That's the fastest way to get every possible virus," Max said, irritation evident in his tone. "I'll be there in an hour, but for the love of God, don't touch anything. Don't open any files." Max was a skeptic and a realist, and that was exactly what I needed right now. I turned off the computer, checked all the doors and windows, and began to wait. But the waiting was unbearable. Another message came through on my phone, this time with a strange attachment. It was an image, a photo of my house, taken from the street. Panic gripped me. I rushed to the window, but I didn't see anything suspicious. Trying to distract myself, I turned on the TV. It took an unusually long time to boot up, and then suddenly, it displayed only static. From the speakers came a whisper, the same one I had heard in the game. "You chose this." Max arrived an hour and a half later. As soon as he saw me, he could tell something was seriously wrong. You look like you haven't slept in a week. What's going on? He asked, nodding toward the computer. I gave him a quick rundown of everything that had happened, the strange messages, the sounds, the images in the game that seemed to bleed into reality. Max shook his head skeptically. Sounds like classic trolling. Someone probably hacked into your system through the game. This isn't paranormal, it's just tech, he said confidently. He sat down at the computer, connected his laptop, and began digging into the settings. Watching him work, I felt a small sense of relief. Max had a way of making things seem logical, no matter how bizarre they were. This is odd, he said after about 10 minutes. The game somehow hid its files. I can't even find it on your hard drive. It's like it's autonomous? I've never seen anything like this. Suddenly, the computer turned on by itself, and the game launched. Max flinched, and I froze in place. A new corridor appeared on the screen, this time smeared with bloody handprints. At the end of the corridor, a door slowly creaked open, revealing a room. A room that was an exact replica of my living room. What the hell is this? Max pushed himself away from the desk. This isn't normal. How is this even possible? From the speakers came the whisper again, louder and clearer this time. You called him. Now we are all together. Max tried to shut down the computer, but it didn't respond. The screen abruptly went black, plunging the room into an eerie silence. But then, the door to the bedroom slammed shut on its own. We both froze, staring at each other. Max tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. From the other side came a sound, a faint, childlike giggle. This isn't the computer. This is something else, Max whispered, his voice shaky. You need to call the police. Or a priest. Or a paranormal investigator. I can't fix this. He quickly packed up his things and left, his earlier skepticism replaced with visible fear. I was left alone, sitting in the dark, fully aware that this was no longer just a game. It was something far worse. After Max left, I was alone in the apartment, enveloped in an unsettling silence. I sat on the couch, trying to collect my thoughts, but thinking didn't help. Something was wrong with this game. Something beyond logic or understanding. My phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. You have a choice. Continue or pay the price. My hands trembled. I didn't reply, but I felt the warning was serious. I decided I needed answers. What was this game? Who created it? And most importantly, why was it targeting me? I opened my laptop and started digging deeper. At first, I focused on finding more information about Sad Satan. What I discovered only deepened my horror. The game first surfaced on the dark web a few years ago. People who played it reported strange, inexplicable events in their lives, technical malfunctions, eerie voices, missing objects, and in some cases, even missing people. Some forum users claimed the game contained encrypted messages about crimes that had been covered up. Others believed it was part of an experiment designed to manipulate the human mind. But everyone agreed on one thing: this was not just a game. The more I searched, the deeper I fell into this rabbit hole. One post on a forum caught my attention. If you see the child, it's already begun. She is the link between the game's world and the real world. And you won't be able to avoid her. I remembered the child's laughter behind the bedroom door, and a chill ran through me. Was this child real? Or just a figment of my imagination, triggered by the game? I decided I needed to find others who had experienced this game. One of the forum posts provided a contact for a hacker who claimed to have dissected the game's code and found a warning left by its creators. I sent him a message. A few hours later, he replied, "I'll help you, but you need to be prepared. This is more dangerous than you think. Meet me at the Cafe Shadow tomorrow at 9 p.m. Don't bring any phones or other devices." The next evening, I arrived at the designated cafe. It was a gloomy place frequented by equally somber people. The hacker introduced himself as Ethan, a wiry man with round glasses and nervous movements. He greeted me with a brief nod and gestured for me to sit at the table. "You're meddling with something you don't understand," he began, wasting no time on formalities. "Sad Satan isn't just a game. It's a weapon. It's a portal. Someone used it to reveal things that are better left in the shadows." "Who created it?" I asked, trying to mask my fear. "No one knows. The game's code is chaotic, as if it was written by several people, or one person who knew too much. It contains images of real criminals, scenes of violence, and recordings of victims. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The core of the game is an algorithm that manipulates your mind." I struggled to process what he was saying. It sounded too unbelievable, even for someone like me. "Why me?" I asked. "Why is it targeting me so personally?" Ethan took a thoughtful sip of his coffee. "Maybe you called it yourself. The game's code taps into your devices, gathers information. It knows who you are, what you fear, what you're hiding. And it uses that against you. And how do I stop it?" I asked, barely able to contain my panic. "You can't stop what's already begun," he replied. "But you can keep it from destroying you completely. Delete all the files, cut off any contact with the game. And hope it leaves you alone." When I got home, I did everything Ethan told me to do. I deleted all the files, wiped my computer clean, and even threw out the old hard drive. But it didn't help. That same evening, the game returned. It simply reappeared on my desktop as if nothing had happened. When I launched it, the familiar corridor appeared. But this time, it was different. The walls were covered with photographs, my photographs. I recognized moments from my life, my birthday, graduation, trips with friends. But what terrified me the most were the photos I had never taken. In one of them, I was asleep in my bed. The photo had clearly been taken from inside the room. A new message appeared on the screen. "We are already here. And we will never leave." The whispering grew louder, filling the entire room. My mind spiraled into chaos. I realized there was no escaping this. The game had merged with reality, and now I was part of it. The whisper filled my head. It wasn't just a sound from the speakers, it felt physical, like a voice inside my mind. I clutched my head, desperately trying to push it out of my thoughts, but the more I resisted, the louder it grew. The computer screen flickered, displaying scenes I couldn't bear to see. My own photographs were changing. Blurry figures began to appear in each one, a child in the shadows, a dark silhouette in the corner. They grew clearer with each image. In one photo, I saw myself sitting in front of the computer, and behind me was that same child. She was staring directly at the camera. This was impossible. The picture had been taken here, now. But who had done it? My phone vibrated again. The same unknown number. "This is only the beginning. You opened the door, and now it will never close." My fingers trembled as I tried to type a response. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" A reply came just seconds later. "We want nothing from you. Just face the truth." I couldn't take it anymore. I rushed to the computer and tried to shut it off. But even after I unplugged all the cables, the screen remained lit. Instead of the usual desktop, a message appeared. "You cannot escape. Look behind you." My heart stopped. Cold sweat ran down my back. An inner voice screamed not to turn around. But curiosity won. Slowly, I turned my head and saw the shadow. It stood in the middle of the room, a small figure with an unnaturally distorted silhouette. I couldn't see its face, but I knew who it was. It was the child from the game. I wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in my throat. The figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving me in deep silence. But the silence wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with the expectation of something terrible. I no longer felt like the master of my own home. Every sound, every movement seemed to be part of the game. I decided to reach out to Ethan again. His replies were now curt, as if he was afraid even to talk to me. "Sorry. I can't help you anymore. You've gone too far." I asked what he meant. The response came a few minutes later. "She's chosen you. She won't stop until she gets what she's looking for." I threw the phone aside. Dawn was breaking, but it brought no relief. Every sound from outside felt alien. Even the birdsong was distorted, as if nature itself knew what was happening here. I decided I had to leave the house. But when I tried to leave, I found the door locked. The lock was broken. The windows wouldn't open either, as if someone had sealed them shut. I was trapped. The computer turned on again on its own. The screen displayed a new corridor, this one ending with a mirror. In the mirror was my reflection, but standing behind me was the child. Her face was now visible, large, empty eyes and a smile that was far too wide to be human. A message appeared on the screen. "You uncovered the truth. Now you are part of it." In the real world, the mirror hanging in my hallway cracked. I heard the same child's laughter echoing from it, the one that had haunted me in the game. I no longer knew where reality ended and the game began. They had become one and the same. The room filled with whispers. The words were chaotic, but their meaning was clear. "Stay. Stay with us." I tried to cover my ears, but it didn't help. The whispers came from within me. I couldn't bear it anymore. I screamed, but my voice dissolved into the emptiness. And then I saw her. The child was standing in front of me. Her empty eyes locked onto mine. She extended her hand and whispered, "You weren't supposed to see this. But now, we are together forever." The light went out. I felt a cold touch on my hand, and everything around me turned black. I don't know how long I stayed in that darkness, but when I opened my eyes, I was no longer at home. Around me was the same corridor from the game. I wasn't playing anymore. I was inside it. Suspended in the air was a monitor, and on its screen appeared the final message. "Welcome home." In the real world I was gone. Only the recordings of the game remained on my YouTube channel. They went viral, but no one could figure out where I had disappeared to. The final video ended with a chilling message. "You can never escape." And that was the end. Or the beginning of something new for someone else. What would you do if a game started affecting your reality? And could you distinguish where the game ends and life begins?